you guys ready up there? All right, quiet on the set. So Geraldine McAlinden, thanks so much for coming into the actor's room.
Thank you for inviting me.
You're so welcome. So firstly, for anybody that doesn't know you, maybe just tell them a little bit about yourself and where you grew up.
Well, I grew up in County Armagh in a wee village called Mahray. It's at the bottom left-hand corner of Lough Neagh.
Okay.
And then I went to school in Tyrone, and then went to college in England and Manchester, and then moved to Dublin. I did a bit of travelling around the world, and then I moved to Dublin in 1999.
Did you always want to be an actor? Is that...
Yes, even though I didn't really have a whole lot of experience in acting. At school, I remember going into my careers teacher and saying, I want to be an actor. And I'd done maybe 2 scenes in Scorn and Og. Wow. And the narrator for the Nativity in school. that was my exposure.
The extent of your acting.
But I wanted to be an actor, and she didn't say a wise up, but in her mannerism, it was basically, you're at a convent school in Northern Ireland. Yeah. You can be a teacher or you can be a nurse. Those are your options. So I sort of went, well, I could be a doctor or a lawyer. As you do when you're 16.
Like, why not?
Yeah. And because at the time I didn't realise that you could actually do a degree in drama. Mm-hmm. So I went off and did law.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay.
And 2 of my best friends in college were doing a drama degree in Liverpool. And I was just amazed that such a thing existed. Wow. But I went off, I did law. And then
how long were you there?
I studied for 6 years and I practiced for about 16 years.
Wow, Geraldine, that's so interesting. I never knew that you did that.
Yeah.
That's crazy. So did you put people away?
I did work as a regulator at one stage, but that wasn't putting people away. Okay. I did, I started off doing criminal law in a satellite town in North Manchester, Oldham. Right. And so we did defence law. We defended alleged criminals.
That's amazing. So at what point did you think, I'm going to go back and start training? Or did you train? You did.
I did train. Yeah. It's funny because my first year of law, I was very unsettled and wasn't really enjoying studying it. Yeah. And partied a lot because Liverpool is a great city to live in. Yeah. And I managed to fail all of my exams. Okay. And I also got a letter saying, we think you should take a year to mature before you take the resits.
Really? How old were you then?
I would have been, 19?
Okay, yeah.
Like
so
20.
Pretty young.
Yeah.
That's young.
Yeah, and first year away from home and moving from a small village to Liverpool, fairly lively city. And there was, I had a friend who actually had just found out she was pregnant, just coming up to my exams. So that was where my head was trying to sort of help her with that at the time. But in the back of my mind, I was thinking, well, I'm not going to hang around for another year. If I take these resits and if I feel, then I can go off and do drama. Mm-hmm. But I passed the resits. So it was like, oh, hurrah.
That's just typical, isn't it? Like, please fail, and you pass.
Yeah, it was always in the back of my mind, if. But anyway, so my legal career continued. And I kept, sort of by default, going to the next stage and the next level. But when I actually started working in law, I really enjoyed it. Mm-hmm. So I completely forgot about acting. And it was only when I moved to Dublin in tail end of 98, start of 99, where an ex-boyfriend actually, I must have mentioned to him that I wanted to be an actor because he gave me the number for the Gaiety School and said they're doing night classes. So I thought, well, that'll be fun. You know? And I had a great time. I did a year of back-to-back introduction to acting. Mm-hmm. Some brilliant teachers. Antoinette Duffy was amazing. Kirsten Marcin was fantastic. And then the following year, they introduced a new course because all of the people in our course were such keeny beanies that they introduced another part-time 1-year course that was 2 nights a week. And Robbie Taylor taught me on that. Yeah, so at that stage, it had become a hobby. Mm-hmm. It was like, well, that's a nice thing to be doing. It isn't law. But then it's sort of the more time I spent doing it, it just sort of got a tighter grip on me.
It has a way of doing that to people.
It does, yeah.
It's like, why do you feel that happens to you? Is it just...
Well, I think it was such a contrast to the day job as it was, because you just got to play. And also, like you've heard, I'm sure, the idea of acting being the shy man's revenge. And I would be quite shy normally. So
Yeah.
the idea of doing things that you'd never do in real life, do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
Or
totally.
being that open.
Yeah.
Where, normally in life you're quite self-contained.
Completely,
But you're going into the conflict, so you're doing all of this. You've got a license.
Yeah, completely. And it is that, because I remember as a child being like that too, and not being able to even talk or ask for anything, even from my mum.
Mm-hmm.
And when you're doing a class, it just feels like as though, well, nobody can judge me because it's not me.
Exactly, exactly. Yeah, you're stepping into somebody else's shoes.
Yeah, you totally get away with it.
And when you're doing classes like that, like some of my best friends are people I met on that very first introduction to drama course in the Gaiety School back in the day.
So that was your first. And then you obviously started to think about acting a little bit more, and then learning about methods and stuff like that. Would you see yourself as a method actor?
Would I see myself? I've picked up lots of different tools from different schools of thought over the years. I spent 2 years doing the Stanislavski workshops in the Focus Theatre with Joe Devlin.
Yeah.
They were amazing because they really talk
Huge.
about standing in your character's shoes. One of the things that kind of training really brought home was the inner life of your character and how your character exists when the story is not concentrating on them. So we do like improvisations that might last 40 minutes of a character on their own, making their tea. Something it's really everyday stuff. But you're really, how does my character move? How do they carry themselves in the world? What do they do when nobody can see them? Do they cry? Do they laugh manically? Do they, what is it about themselves that they don't show the world?
Yeah.
So that kind of stuff is always fascinating to me.
Yeah. So there's a lot of work, like for every character then that you take on. Are you doing that leading up to?
Yeah, well, I suppose you're starting off reading the script first of all, and you're trying to get a sense of who this person is. I did a course with Margie Haber.
Oh yeah,
years ago, and she
was that here, or did you go to Los Angeles?
Oh, here.
Oh, right,
yeah.
Okay.
And she did a really interesting exercise with us where she took us through about 10 different aspects of anybody, and she made us think, when you approach a character, what are the things you have in common with them, and what are the things that are different? So what are the things that you might walk like them, or you might talk like them, or you might have had the same education as them? What's different? They've been in prison, you haven't. Or so it's really good to identify what of yourself you can bring to a character, what you have in common, but also where you need to stretch and just go outside your comfort zone
and develop a tiny bit more.
Yeah.
And that's interesting, because I think a lot of people think, oh, it's just a script. I'll just learn the script, say the lines.
Yeah,
no, there's a lot of work leading up to that then as well. And how do parts normally come to you? Is it through agents? Is it friends? Or because you've worked consistently pretty much from 2006. Before I can see, it's constant, which is
Yeah, I've been lucky enough now.
Yeah.
I'd say mostly, I'd say it's probably about 60%. Word of mouth, or friends referring onwards, or a lot of stuff I've done with IFTA, the student filmmakers out there, and also with Filmbase. I've done 3 features with Filmbase.
Nice little plug, thank
you. So that's I don't know. I find that if you can work together in a group of people, not be a diva, where you can get the work done, you do it to the best of your ability. And you can have fun with people without being a distraction on set. People generally remember you for the right reasons, and they'll call you again.
Yeah. And it's networking, which I actually hate that word. I just hate it. I say it every time. But I do think it's about like making friends and just enjoying being around people.
That's the thing. It's the hardest thing in the world, getting a job.
Yeah.
But when you're on set, it's the best job in the world that you can have. And it's funny when you say networking. A friend of mine, her mum calls it cobwebbing. And I think it's such a great, it's like the idea of spiders sort of spinning a web,
Nice.
Yeah. So, no, I think if you can meet somebody, have a chat, we're all in this industry because we love stories. We're, some aspect of it. It might be the lights, it might be the sound effects, it might be the story, it might be the emotional impact that a story can have. It might be because people like screen time. They get that 15 minutes of attention that maybe as a middle child they didn't get. You know? Everybody has loads of different reasons why, but the one thing that we all have in common is the passion. for wherever that comes from. We have a passion, and we're really lucky to work in that area, because I know we'll talk about it later, but just the different types of jobs that you can have out in the world. Acting is just such an amazing job. It is a privilege to be able to do that.
It is, yeah, it really is. There's a lot of people that want to do it. But speaking of other jobs, you've also produced and you've directed. So as far as I can see, you were in one thing, Sting, I think, that you produced as well.
Yes.
So you're acted in that as well. But generally, as a whole, do you try and stay away from acting when you're doing something else?
Yeah, I think that it's a lot to take on to act. Well, you can sort of do it. You can direct and produce.
Yeah.
Because those two go hand in hand. You can act and produce.
Or write.
Yeah, and produce. I've done that as well. But I think if you're writing, acting, directing, that's an awful lot. And you're at a disadvantage. And I've only ever acted and acted in something once, which was great fun. And that was a play. So yeah, you're at a disadvantage because you're the only one in the cast that doesn't have a director.
Yeah. And then how important do you think it is for actors to create work for themselves, particularly at the start?
Hugely important. Coming out of the Gaiety School, for example, there were four of my friends, four of us all together, that decided we were going to produce a play.
Right.
And Antoinette Duffy very kindly agreed to direct it, and we did fundraisers, and to me it was a baptism of fire, because one of my friends ended up starting an MBA at the time, so she got really busy. Two of my friends were acting in it, so they were really busy. So I had deliberately taken on a very small role, and been cast in a very small role. But so I was doing the bulk of the production work. Wow. And it was just it was like a baptism of fire. But I'll never forget, on the curtain call, just sort of the first performance, looking out into the audience and seeing how much the audience had enjoyed the show. Yeah. And looking back at the actors and seeing how much they were enjoying their curtain call, and thinking, gosh, this wouldn't have happened except
if you didn't make
I didn't do this. Yeah. And that, like, producing brings its own gifts, but it's one of the hardest jobs you'll do, because creatively you're being creative in a different way. You are trying to make such tiny resources go such a long way, and you're trying to call in on favours, and so I think I've gone off.
No, that's like, it is
there.
important,
but it is important, definitely.
Yeah.
And also for just even having the sense that you're involved in something is really important to your mind.
Yeah.
And then hopefully you're hoping that people will get to see it, and out of work comes work. So
totally. And I think it makes you less desperate also when you go into those situations of like being cast for something else, because you're working anyway, and you're there for the right reasons. You're there because you enjoy the experience. So it's not so like, please, I really need to get cast, make it happen. You're kind of like, well, I'm doing my own things, I'm creating work, and I'm doing what I love, so if I get this, great. If not a big deal.
And it's funny, because at the beginning of my acting career, I think initially it is, going back to that idea of being shy, and all of a sudden the limelight is on you, and sort of maybe enjoying that bit of attention. But I think the more time I've spent, certainly just the idea of being able to tell stories and being able to give people either a distraction, some escapism, total catharsis, because they'll see somebody in that story that is going through something that they're going through, so they feel less isolated in the world, or it helps them to make sense of their own lives. So I think you definitely, for me anyway, you become a lot more generous-hearted or something. Yeah. So to answer your question in a really roundabout way,
no,
it means that by making stuff, so say for example, I've taken part in film challenges, so I've done sound, I've done camera, I've done continuity, I've done script supervision, I've produced it. I haven't done editing yet because I'm just too technologically challenged. But I think with that comes an appreciation, both on set, probably more on set, because you're surrounded by people who are all doing their part of the job. But so when you're going in for an audition, of course you want the part, or you're not turning up for it. But you go in with a more healthy sense that you are bringing one potential piece of the jigsaw. Yeah. And if your piece of the jigsaw fits into the whole thing, then that's brilliant. And if it doesn't, then I'm getting better at sort of accepting, well, that jigsaw wasn't for me, and hopefully there'll be another jigsaw coming along soon that I am.
Exactly. And it's for that. I think that's the only way that you don't go nuts when you're auditioning, because there's a lot of rejection. Yeah. So you just have to say, if it's for me, it won't go by me.
And I think you have to you do have to not make the mistake of measuring your self-esteem on how often you get cast or the kind of roles you get cast in, because that way lies disaster, because that is the one part of life, unless you are creating parts for yourself, that is the one thing you have no say over. You know, as I say, you are a tiny piece of a jigsaw that is fitting into a bigger one. And so I think it's good to have a healthy sense of, do you know, this project. I went to a Q&A once by the lady whose name escapes me, but she was the casting director for The Bridge. Yeah. And the original Girl with the Dragon Tattoo.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, she was amazing. But she had a lovely way of saying, she sees so many actors, she puts them forward for parts, and then she has to be the person to break the news. I'm sorry, it wasn't you. Yeah. But the way she sees it is, this was not your time. Your time will come, your project will come, but today this project was not for you. And I think that if you can sort of find a kind of Zenism that sort of goes, if it's for me, it won't go by me. Yeah. And then park it and
just let it go. Yeah. And also it depends on how people see you, which kind of leads me into my next question. Do you find you get typecast?
Ooh, just a bit. There's different types.
Okay. So what do you find happens all the time?
Okay, I either get cuddly cardigan mammy.
Okay.
Or giving out cardigan mammy.
Right.
There's a lot of cardigans in my career so far.
I think I'm responsible for one of them.
But I've got a nice selection of cardigans over the years. Nuns. I've played nuns 3 times. Yeah. Nurses. I played a couple of times. And then I got promoted to playing a doctor. Yeah. What else? Wagon bosses. That was in How to Be Happy. Another film-based feature.
Yeah, a film-based one. And then the recent one, which was Writing Home, which she got cast as the mummy. Yeah. Well, I really thought you were right for the role. Sorry.
No, I loved it. No, come here, I will never complain about being typecast, because typecast is cast. So that's the start, you know. Yeah. It's going back to, and again, it's something that... you know, going right back to what Margie Haber said, what do you have in common with your character? What's different? Yeah. And the whole idea of first impressions, you know, there's some scientific figures out there that say the first time you meet someone, you will judge them 73% or something purely on physically what you see. Yeah. And so I have ruddy cheeks. I have a country look about me. I can either look very warm or I can look very severe depending on what's going on. Yeah. If I'm thinking, you know, much and all, it's great fun to get to play, you know, totally out of your comfort range. At the end of the day, if you can convincingly bring some life to a character, then that's good. You know, that's the bit you don't have to act. Yeah. So I love the cardigans.
You love the cardigans. Yeah. It's fine. So you were part of the film-based close-up scheme, which was an initiative for actors that got to come in and kind of chat to new directors every week. What was that like?
That was amazing. I have to say film-based has been a brilliant resource, not just for the training that you can get. I've done all kinds of courses here, but the Attic Studio was operating out of film-based for 12 years. And it's just that idea of a community, a sense of community. And what was brilliant about Close Up, and I'd love to know how you came up with the idea, was the opportunity to get to practice your art every week. Yeah. Even though you might not be in stuff. And just meet with other actors and meet with directors in an environment where you're not under the pressure of being auditioned. You just get to have a sense of their style of direction.
That's it, isn't it? That was the one thing that we always found, I think, and why we came up with the idea, because unless you get cast, you don't know, you know, what a director does really and what their process is leading up to shooting. And everybody has it slightly different. So for us, we just felt that's a great way of, you know, actors upskilling and training, but also for our directors. Our feedback from our directors has been phenomenal too, because like they come in with like scripts that are in development, and they're getting to hear them for the first time, and they're rewriting on the fly because they get to hear the words out loud, and they get to see, like, you know, improvisations and stuff. So it's worked really well for both sides. So yeah, we were delighted, and you were one of the first alumni as part of that. So thanks a million for taking part in that too.
It was brilliant, and actually in Galway, I got to see Nick Kelly's film and Frank Barry's films.
Yeah, there's brilliant.
And they were amazing. And both of those directors had come into us in close up. So we had workshopped some of their scenes.
Yeah.
And it was amazing then just to see how that translates on screen. So thanks a million for close up. Those kind of initiatives are actually invaluable to actors because we're all freelance, we're all self-employed, to have a sense of community, to have a base. A film base, dare I say, it's hugely important. It's important psychologically as well as practically, in that who do I know who has a camera, who do I know that has a radio mic, where can I rent something really cheaply. So both on across the board, both personally and professionally, film base is really, really good.
Oh, thank you for that. We really appreciate that. What was the other question that I wanted to ask you was, how does an actor, right, when they're waiting on their big break, how do you survive in life? How do you pay rent? How do you have money for all these classes? How do you have money to do horse riding lessons or whatever it is? Like, do you have a bread and butter job as well?
I do.
Right.
5 years ago, I quit law because for 11 years I'd been juggling acting and directing with law. And then I got to the stage where I realised that to actually take on a big project, you have to be available at really short notice.
Yeah.
And when you are a lawyer, you have to make your clients your number one priority. So what's that saying about you can't have two masters? So I was lucky enough the first year that they ran the programme in screen acting in the factory, which is now Bow Street. I got a place on that and I decided to bite the bullet and go full time into acting. Okay. So at that stage, I could have asked for a year off work, but I was like, no, this is it. I've got to not have a safety net. I'm going to go for this. And at the time, I'd been saving for years, and I just about had enough for a deposit for a house. And it was the thing was, I either buy a house and then I am a lawyer forever to pay off that house, or I take a chance and I live off those earnings, those savings, and just
give it a go.
And they always say you regret the things you don't do in life more than.
That's very brave, though,
so
Geraldine.
It was brave or mad, I'm not sure.
Honestly, that's really brave. It's very hard to take a massive leap like that.
Yeah,
so.
And I suppose I was lucky because I'd actually been downscaling. Just through different personal circumstances, I'd been downscaling, so my salary was being reduced. So I'd gotten used to living on less money anyway. Yeah. But so paying for the course in the factory is a fairly expensive course, and then obviously you're not working at anything other than, in fairness, film. So they were very keen that if you got cast in something, you should go off and do that. I know some drama schools have a no acting until you're finished your training policy, but as far as the factory were concerned, they were like, this is what you're training to do, so if you get asked to do it in the meantime, do it. They were right to do that. So I managed to live off the savings for a couple of years after that, about 3 years, and then it came to the stage that I was down to, I just paid my last month's rent. There was no way of knowing if I was going to have anything coming in the following month.
Oh, so scary.
Yeah, and then luckily I got the Secret Scripture, and that paid my rent for the next 3 months.
Oh,
so it was just that.
Thank you, Jim Sheridan.
Thank you, Jim Sheridan. Because I used to actually walk past people who were homeless in the street and go, my God, that
I'm a paycheck away. Yeah, it's a hard thing to decide for yourself.
That's it. And at the time I was directing a play that was due to go on in February, and I'd paid January's rent and I didn't have February's rent. So it was like, you just put in your faith and belief that something will come. But so no, it's one of the toughest parts of working as an actor, because on the one hand you've got to balance having the time to be creative, to work on yourself and develop your skills in between jobs, but also have the energy left over from when you do a survival job to actually still have the energy to be creative. So it's a bit of a catch-22.
It's a hard one. It's hard, and I'm always really interested to see what people are doing on the side. Some people like to do web design, but some people are maybe doing radio or something. I started doing temping. I worked for a great company, Adecco. One of the girls in my course in the factory had recommended them, and
again, temping receptionist work is really good for actors because actors have good presentation skills and they can be welcoming. And
you can pretend you like someone when you don't.
Exactly. That's your motivation. Your motivation is your
motivation here. I really hate her. I want to kill her. But, like, I need this job.
Yeah. And in fairness, most temping agencies are aware that, if you know a week in advance that you have an audition, say on a Wednesday morning, then they will factor that into the work that they give you. Yeah. The only thing about it is that they're because the temporary nature, there's no guarantees that you will get work. What else have I done? I've done some painting for friends.
Nice.
Yeah, I did some making circuit boards for a friend's dad.
Wow.
Yeah, I can make circuit boards.
Jesus.
Yeah, it took me ages to make the first ones, but then I got quite dapper at it.
Yeah.
What else have I done? I did some mystery shopping.
Oh, cool. What was that like? Did you talk to people as well?
Yes, but
so you're like, excuse me, I want to bring this back. That's very cool. Yeah. And really good for observing people, you know, and building characters. Yeah. So speaking of characters.
Yes.
You have an insane amount of credits on IMDb. I just ended up just printing it because it's too long for me. But let's jump forward to 2016 because that was the Secret Scripture with Jim. So what was that like working with Jim Sheridan?
That was amazing. It started as a workshop type audition. So there were about 50 of us in the room the first day, and he'd brought in the script and he wanted to, in some cases, run scenes as they were written, but in most cases improvise them.
Right.
And it's funny because beforehand I'd got asked to come in with a character in mind, but we never got around to looking at that character, and that wasn't the character I ended up playing anyway. So there was that workshop, and then that was just before Christmas in 2015. He came back in January and said he wanted to see us again, and so there was a smaller group each time being called back, and it was on the fifth day. He said, "Oh yeah, you're playing the head nun." So I was like,
"You're like score."
Yeah, but it was It was amazing though, because not only is he a phenomenal director, he's a fantastic writer, and he is also he's a brilliant actor. Like we were doing a scene, and he was playing a 16-year-old girl in it, and you believed it.
Really?
Yeah. He's brilliant, and and at the time I was directing a play, so I learned so much. It was like a masterclass just in directing, and also in just that enhanced my directing skills for the play I was directing as well.
What's his process leading up to shooting? So it's like, or on set itself, is it Louise saying you're not doing that right, or does he give you a note, or just like how does that happen?
The first scene that I filmed was down in Innishteague, and the action was I was being driven into the village, and there was a bus coming along, and Rooney Mara was getting off it to meet Aisling O'Sullivan Arant, and I was there to meet two girls who were pregnant, and I was bringing them to a mother and baby home, and I was not very happy with either of them. So the first scene was that I, drive up, get out of the car, look around. That was the direction. So I did it the first time, and then Jim came down the hill, this big hill, and he sort of puts his arm around me, like around my shoulder, and he's like, right, now, I want you to look around. You're like the mafia. You're like the dawn of this town, because the church controls everything, and you control the church in this town, bar the priests, because that was a whole different level as well. So yeah, he was great at giving you a sense of ownership without telling you do this, do that, do whatever. Yeah. So there was that element, and then the other thing I'll never forget was when we went to film the first scene inside. He disappeared. He came back in like 1940s suit, tie. And he says, right, so we're going to improv a scene now where, I'm a banker, and we're talking about how you're selling babies. Babies are being adopted for money in the States. Whoa. And I had this out-of-body experience.
So would I. I'd be like, I'll be back in a second. One.
But you know yourself when you're on set, and there's like, 20, 30, 40 people in the room. You can't.
Yeah, you're
and I was there sort of going, right, just go with this. That's all you can do is go with it. And I suppose that's what he does. He creates a space to allow you to go with things. So it's like what if is one of my favourite phrases in life and in acting. It's like, what if anything can happen, after If, you know.
I love it.
So yeah,
that was amazing. Yeah, that sounds like so much fun. And then you went. I know you did a couple of other things, but then I suppose Red Rock was, you know, that's a big thing.
No, that was lovely. I was called in by Karen Scully in Louise Kiley casting to audition, and initially it was just for a doctor in a scene in the hospital, and so went in, got the part, was delighted, and then a few months later, Karen contacted my agent, Frontline, and she was like, would Geraldine be available to come in again? And this time they had created a name for me. So in fairness to her, she had, you know, when a doctor came around again, she had said, well, this girl was in, she played a doctor, do you want to have a look at what she did? Are you happy with that? And the director of that, because with Red Rock, I think it's cycles of 6 or 8 that the director changes. So each director has to be happy with what character. So she created a recurring character for me, and I've been in there 3 times. Yeah, and it was funny because the next audition I had with her for something else, I was saying, oh yeah, I'm back in Red Rock, and they've even given me a name. And she goes, yeah, I made that up. I was like, brilliant.
Thank you, Karen. You
Thank
legend.
you, Karen. Yeah,
you absolute legend. And then we go on to Writing Home.
Yes.
And how did you get cast in this, Geraldine?
Well, there happens to be a casting genius called Lynn Larkin who recommended me. No, and I auditioned, so it wasn't and actually that's one thing I would say. Even when it is word of mouth, you cannot take it as read that you've got the part. I never do that.
No, because other people have to be happy with it. Like all the directors, there were 3 directors on this, so everybody had to be happy.
Yeah, and so, but you have to go in. You still have to fight for it. It's like, this is what I will bring. This, my part of the jigsaw is going to have this much energy, and this is what I'm going to bring. So I had the funniest audition with Naham, Miriam and Alexon.
Yeah, I can imagine.
It was just this mental flurry of activity. I had to be making an apple tart, and I came out of it going, I'm not quite sure what happened there, but I like their energy, you know. And and then luckily I got cast in it, and that was just lovely, because the part was nice. Again, like, I know I joke about, I'm always being cast as the mum, but that said, there's like, it's as characters go, mothers generally have a lot of depth to them. They have different mothering skills.
They do.
And there's a real relationship there when you're cast as a mum. And it was brilliant. We had great fun filming up in Carlingford.
Yeah.
Everybody as an actor wants to work.
Yeah.
And that's ticking that box. And different sets have different energies on them. And so everybody is generally really delighted. Some people, if they get nervous on set, they don't always show their best, or but it's a really big job for a director. Usually it starts with the director and the producers, because they are your first line of contact, to create an environment where people can take risks and can enjoy themselves but work hard, but bring their best game. And I have to say, with Writing Home, it's up there with, like, I'd say 3 or 4 of my favourite projects, where you sort of create a family on every project that you work on. Some family members you don't want to see again.
You're like,
but with that one, like, when we went to the Fla, it was really exciting to see the film on the Fla, but to me it was more exciting to meet up with everybody in the cast and crew and just have crack with them.
Yeah. They're a nice bunch. Yeah. I have to say, I definitely had a soft spot for everybody involved in that. And then we move on to an amazing project. Zoo.
Oh, yes.
Zoo.
Yeah.
So what was that like, and how did you get cast in that?
That was a bit mental, because I was going to go to Toronto Film Festival for the world premiere of Secret Scripture.
Yeah.
And the reason I was going was, first of all, it was the world premiere, but my nephew lived there, and my godmother lives there, and lots of cousins. And I was also supposed to go meet an agent. Now, the agent lived in Vancouver, but he was going to be in Toronto over the festival. So this was the plan. And then through Frontline, I got asked to audition for Zoo, and they wanted availability. And I was like, well, I am available for some of the dates, but I have limited availability. And it's nearly, do you know what? You're nearly guaranteed. As soon as you say you've limited availability, that's the job you're going to get. It happened with Red Rock. It happened with Zoo. It's happened with loads of things.
Maybe you should just say, I'm very busy.
She has limited availability. Maybe it is. It's part of that whole thing of it's easier to get a job when you're in a job.
Yeah,
but
constantly,
So I was due to go to Canada for 2 weeks, but I auditioned for Zoo, and I ended up getting cast in it, which meant I could go to Canada, but only for 6 days. So it was mental. So I filmed. The first day was a Monday in Belfast. Came back down to Dublin. Flew out on Tuesday evening. Arrived in Canada, I think on the Wednesday. Stayed there until the following Monday night. Flew back to Dublin. Travelled to Belfast to film on the Wednesday and Thursday of the following week. Wow. So on the one hand, it's an actor's dream, because it's like you're going to. That's all brilliant stuff to do for your career.
Amazing.
But a wee bit mental in time zones. But yeah, so it's a beautiful film. It is. It's based on a true story, or inspired by a true story, which is a bit of a legend in Belfast, and it's basically going back to World War II. The Minister for Defence issued an order that all of the dangerous animals in Belfast Zoo were to be killed, and this is because during the Blitz, they thought that if animals escaped, they could attack people. And so it was like a very grim, really grim thing to do. But during that time, there was a baby elephant in Belfast Zoo, and the elephant was so scared of the bombs, because Belfast would have been attacked by the Germans, and so they would have had bomb shelters and the likes. But this lady who worked in the zoo made it her business to sneak this baby elephant home every night to her back garden in like a 2 up, 2 down. And stay with him all night so he wouldn't be scared, and then sneak him back into the zoo the next morning, which is just mental. And like, how would you not notice an elephant in somebody's back garden? So the story has been changed slightly in that in the film version, she has help from 4 children, some fantastic actors in it. Art Pilkington is in it, from Game of Thrones. My children are Ian and James, whose names I can't remember, but Ian was in Moonboy. Yeah, he's Moonboy's friend.
Pete's mum.
I played their mum.
Yeah, your Pete's mum. And then Amy Huberman is in it as well.
And Amy Huberman is in it, so yeah, it's so... Oh my God. It's phenomenal. It's beautiful. One way I describe it, it's a bit like E.T. If you were to superimpose an elephant in the place of E.T., it's that kind of heartwarming. It'll make you laugh. It'll make you cry. It'll make it just even. I got mistaken for an extra.
How dare they?
I'm always doing it.
Don't mistake me for an extra.
No, I'm always finding myself in the wrong queue, and they'll go like, "Who sent you?" You know what? And I'm like, "Well, no, I have some dialogue," and they're like, "We are so sorry. You're supposed to be here." You know, and I'm like, no, well, treat people nice regardless of whatever position you have in the film. Yes, of course. Yeah. But with that one, the base that we were in this film, the street was set up like the 1940s, old cars, fires, hundreds of people running down in 1940s gear. There was a bride who was running through the streets in a bridal dress. It was amazing to look, at, and I couldn't just sit in the green room. I had to be sitting on the stairs watching. And one of the ADs sort of, she didn't realise I was in the film, and it was my first time on that particular set. Yeah. So she was like, "Oh, they need you outside now." And I was like, "Oh, right, do I need the boys?" And she was like, no, they just need you outside. And as I was coming up to the door, one of the other first ADs was like, "No, she's an actor." And she's like, "Oh, I'm so sorry." I was like, "Don't worry. I obviously
fine.
I didn't have my diva with me today."
Everything. Yeah. I'll bring my diva the next time.
Yeah. I've got to remember to pack my diva. But no. Amy Huberman was great in it, really friendly, a lovely part.
The Hoobs.
The Hoobs.
That's what we call her. The Hoobs.
Yeah. But she's so good at playing very likeable characters. Yeah. She's really...
She has that likeable thing, definitely. Though, doesn't she? Yeah. She's cool.
Yeah. I did a film with her brother as well, Mark.
Oh, Mark. Yeah. I love Mark. Years ago, I don't even want to say how long ago, but he was in a short film that I was an extra in, where I was like running to be a zombie, and he was like, he's really nice, isn't he?
Zombies are cool too, aren't they?
Zombies are brilliant. I love zombies. So you've done like an insane amount of work. The other thing quite recently that you wanted to mention was the one with Fix Me with Tom Moran.
Yeah.
So the whole thing about like moving online, and there's more work now online, and you know, creating your own stuff. So Tom created this.
Tom created it, and I should say that Tom and I and another guy, Stephen Tighe, we're all in Frontline.
Yeah.
And so the screen directing that I've done has been through Stephen and through Nolan, through Frontline, and but with Fix Me, I was just acting. Tom had written and was starring in this web series. And I was really curious, going back to what you're saying about creating your own work. I did a fantastic course at Film-Based Ran with Gunnar and Lauren from the LA Comedy Actors Studio. And they were like, guys, you need to be producing your own content. And so Fix Me was amazing. We did it. Tom's younger brother, Ben, was DOP on it.
Yeah. A family affair.
Tom was everything else. We were using his mum's therapy rooms. So I played a therapist. It's Tom's first time in therapy. It's funny, but there's heart to it as well. So,
there's a lot going on.
Yeah. But again, that was amazing because we spent maybe 3 days? No, I'd say 5, meeting up, going through scripts, trying to refine them. And then 5 days filming. And that was it. We had a web series, you know, so now it's more accessible than ever to create your own content and do it to a fairly high
and just to get out there and to show people what you're able to do rather than just waiting on the phone to ring all the time, because it just doesn't happen that way.
Exactly.
I always end on this one last note, right? And I always ask everybody the same thing, but what has been the one piece and best piece of information or advice that you've ever gotten from somebody?
I'd say there's 2. Can I say 2?
Yes, you can say 2.
In life, and I think in work, be kind to people. You don't know where they're coming from.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's just a good life lesson. And the other one is actually when I was in between each round of auditions for The Secret Scripture, my younger brother gave me really good advice. Because I was there and I was like, oh my God, I've got this audition and it's for Jim Sheridan and he's such a big deal, and what if I got it? And he sort of stopped me in my tracks and he said, Geraldine, you're an actor. And I was like, yeah. And he goes, you give up law to act? And I was like, oh, yeah. He goes, are you any good? I was like, He goes, are you any good? I was like, He goes, are you any good at acting? And I was like, yeah, I think so. And he goes, look, you've got to, he was trying to give me an example, and we had this fireside mat that had a camel on it, right?
Right. And
he was like, so you've changed careers to do this mad career called acting. If you don't believe in yourself, then forget it. Yeah. But he was going, you call yourself an actor now, and if you go into a room and they want you to be a camel, and he pointed down, there's this wee abstract camel on the floor, on the carpet. He goes, be the blank camel. So be the camel. And it was basically get yourself in the zone and believe.
And that do it.
Believe you can do this. If you're going in, if you've given up, you're making all kinds of sacrifices in your life, financial sacrifices, to do this mad job, then you've got to be your number one cheerleader, and you have to believe that you can do it. Because if you don't, then you're not going to, an audience isn't going to believe it. So it is, and coming right back to the idea of, Shy Man's Revenge and whatever, if it's your passion, if it's something that you feel so driven to do, then you've got to give yourself the kudos to say, I am an actor and I will do my best in this role. And if you can marry that against, and I might be right for it or not, but be the camel. That's my parting advice.
Thank you so much, Geraldine McAlinden. Thank you so much for coming into the Actors Room. Really enjoyed it. It was so informative.
And I love the room.
Oh, thank you.
It's amazing.
Thanks. We made Stephen do it.
Yeah, thank you, Stephen.